Welcome back, Karen Kilby Clark.
Yes, and Marcia Sheehan. We are Honest Convos with Karen and Marcia. And it's been 4 years since we kind of sunset the last version of the podcast. And now we are reviving again. It's so exciting.
Yes, yeah, so technically this is our third season, right? Because we
Yeah.
started, do you recall when we started? Was it 2018 or
I,
2019?
yeah, I want to say 2018.
And then we rebooted in 2020 after like a few months into the pandemic. We went almost a full year
Mm-hmm.
and,
Mm-hmm.
we ended because things have seasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Karen and I and our biz bestie Kim, we hosted an event back in December, like a goal. What was it called? Do you remember?
Sip and strategize.
Sip and Strategize. Yeah, we hosted an event, like an in-person event, and it was to goal plan for 2025. And I really started thinking, like, oh, I want to do a podcast, but I didn't want to do a solo one. So it was like in the back of my mind. And then when you reached out to me, like, I think in January or February or something, you're like, "Hey, no pressure, because that's how we are." Right?
Yeah.
It's like, "Say no if you don't want to." But you reached out and I was like, "Oh my god, like 100% yes." Like it was a full body yes, like we have to do this. So,
Yeah, I love it. And
yeah.
it's the same. I was kind of like, oh, I miss it. I miss just the conversating, right? And the community we were building and the interactions we were having. And I also was like, well, maybe I could start a podcast, but I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to myself. Like that's just not fun for me. So yeah, I was like, let me just see if Marsha would be interested. So it worked out. I'm so excited.
It is. There's something to be said about like having a conversational podcast because I listen to Brooke Castillo and hers are a lot of solo casts and I like them personally because like it's kind of like just having somebody who talks a lot. Where, like sometimes you have friends where they're just always talking and you can't get a word in edgewise. So like I don't mind, I'm just there to listen and get the information. But like my sister, I was sharing some podcast with her and she's like, "Oh, I really don't." She's like, "I prefer the interviews." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So here we are. So when Karen and I decided we were going to do this, it was funny because I was like, "Look, I want this to be 100% business. Like I want it to be all focused on like just, how much value can we provide for business owners and I don't want it to be like mindset and blah blah blah." And then it was like, okay, like after, a little bit of time I was like, "Oh, so much of entrepreneurship is mindset." I mean,
Yeah.
so much of life is. So, the next time Karen and I met, I was like, "Okay, change of heart." And she's like, "Yeah, okay," because like Karen, I think she was probably thinking that anyway, like the me being able to just focus on business, like it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. So
Well, it's like you said, it's almost like married together, right? Like it's part of the journey. It's so much of being a business owner is like your personal growth and where you are in your different seasons in life and what kind of mindset and thoughts you bring to the things you're doing. So, yeah, I don't know that we would have been able to avoid it. So, it's good that we'll just intentionally weave it in.
yeah, and I think you and I are good at like being on the fly too. Like we obviously like we that's what I liked about the second season is we had like monthly themes and structure and everything.
Hmm.
So it's good for us to have like that as kind of like bumpers, like of okay, this is what we're focusing on, and then we can just like kind of free flow. Whereas before I was like, it's gonna be strategy and there'll be 8 minutes and just whatever, which is like goes against my personality. But so what have you been up to these past 4 years?
Oh my gosh, so many things. No, just continuing to work full time. So that's my kind of my superpower, I guess you could say, is like I juggle my full time job with, having the business on the side. I am at a season of life where kids are grown and pretty much going or gone. So my daughter is graduating soon from college, and then she'll continue on because she wants to be a doctor. So she's got to be in school forever. And then my son, who's the youngest, will be graduating high school and going off to college. So it's like it's just this kind of place where I don't have to do as much momming, and it's weird. I don't know really how to make that transition yet, still figuring it out. But So a lot of that energy then is pouring back into business and helping, the clients that I work with to really figure out how to build a business that works when they don't. That's like my tagline. So, like I don't believe in building a business that takes over your life. I think your business should support your life. And so I find a lot of times I have had no option other than building a business that fits my life because I work full time. So folks that I think work like primarily their business is their full time, it can end up sucking the life right out of everything else. So I'm just like kind of finding it interesting and challenging and exciting to dig into this niche because and a lot of them are solopreneurs, right? They don't have big teams. There's not like, a huge company there, and they don't even want that. Like, can I just go on vacation and not be in debt? Can, I put my kids in activities and not have to worry about how to pay for it? Like, just like simple financial stability. And so it's just really fun to work with that group of people because they're like, it's a very easy goal to achieve, but sometimes they just don't have like the structure, the systems, the automation, AI. A lot of people are still kind of like, I don't want to dive into that. It seems kind of weird. I don't want AI to take over the world and start with my business. And so, anyhow, just kind of busting some of those myths and helping them like build that business that works for them instead of them working for the business. It's been really fun. So that's kind of where I'm at now. How about you, Marcia? What you been up to?
Well, before I talk about what I've been up to, I did want to say that I've always admired that about you is that you've been able to com- not compartmentalize because you have been able to because of that full-time job and the family and everything. Instead of like how I was as an entrepreneur, I was kind of like, oh, let's just let's just wing it. Let's just play it by ear. Let's be cheap and figure everything out on my own and not spend any money and not not be a part of masterminds and whatnot. And kind of like fast track things. And that created very, very slow growth, which was okay because that was the timing. That was the correct timing because raising the kids was the priority in my life at that time. I also didn't know much about ADHD, and during the pandemic, I self-diagnosed myself. I tried to get a formal diagnosis from Kaiser, but basically I went through all of these tests and everything, and they're like, "No, it's just anxiety." And but anyway, but like just my self-reflection on everything and from childhood and all of that, I was like, "No, it's definitely ADHD. It's in a ton of ADHD." So being able to figure that out and look at the business that I had, like the society and the conferences and all of that, like I was able to determine like this is how I work best. It's like project based timelines because I need something to like reverse engineer towards. And so like strategy, that kind of thing, ideation, like that's where I excel at. If you and I like if I had met you, like cuz I feel like our journeys have kind of, we've matched each other with like the growth and acceleration and all of that and finding our expertise, but it's like if I was just getting started on my path now and I was doing what most normal air quotes entrepreneurs do where they get started and they start making money. Like their focus is money, whereas mine was like the mission. I was more mission based. Like I want to do something which I have found because during those long story short, during those 4 years, I had two positions, two full-time positions, and let's just say Marsha's not cut out for so I like the full-time pay, but the full-time work, it just was it was not a good fit. Where was I going with that?
The mission based.
Mission based, but um oh my god, like all the trauma of having a full-time job is just like completely
Hmm.
just kidding.
This
Maybe
is real brains at work, guys.
but yeah, so yeah, oh, so I was saying like if I were to just now like maybe I've been working full time this whole time, and then I were to start my own business and I would be to like making money off the get, because that's usually when people go into business, like they're like, okay, I need to make money, They get, but basically like independent, like small business owners, entrepreneurs, they get going and they're just, where are my clients at, and it's like day by day, and they're making money, but then they have to be fully involved in every single aspect of their business, because it's kind of like putting out the fires, and there's no real forecasting and projection and that, all of that kind of thing. Like maybe in the back of their mind, but like what Karen does is like she's able to see, okay, you have clients, you have a business, you're making money, but like here's where all the leaks are, and
Mhm.
this is how we can systematize it, which I think is beautiful, because like if I could have hired you back then with the society and the conference, you could have been like, Marsha, you might be focusing your time on this, which is really not gonna get you a good ROI. Like maybe if we
Mhm.
just spend a little bit of time fixing this problem, then you can free up your time and you can, but like I think we get addicted to the cortisol. We start out not really knowing anything, so then we start learning and we're like, okay, this is cool, but it's like the day to day, like it's not sustainable long term. And yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm excited for what we're both doing during those 4 years. So like my kids are now 16 and 14, and I've like, they're not on their way out the door, but I feel like with their ages, like the foundation was set. I did my job. I raised them. They're good boys. They are good, decent people. And like my involvement, the day-to-day involvement has lessened so much. And having those two positions, so I worked for a nonprofit and it was like a flex schedule. I started that in January of 2022, and I was a fundraiser, so I was responsible for putting on annual walkathons, and I did a casino night while there too. So project based, it was a great fit with that, but it was a brand new program, and I was working at an already established organization, and this was a brand new program that was coming in. And so I think that because it had like a parent company kind of, like I think that people were thinking I was getting support from both ways, and I wasn't really. And whenever I would ask, what's the goal? Like, and it was always, okay, we need to raise $500,000 by June. And so like I could only ask so many times and be like, I did host 3 of the events and raise money and started relationships, and I built that foundation. And it was fulfilling, but I was getting, like, physically ill. I had, like, kidney stone, like, some type of bacterial infection, like, there was, like, all these issues, and then so I went from that to working for a luxury builder, and that was, like, the expectation was to be in the office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., be at open houses on weekends, do networking things in the evening, and I had the beautiful VP title, but like the expectation and the salary didn't, match up. And also like that's just not a good fit for me. Like I did do very creative things there. But just the being in the office that amount of time, it just killed my creativity. I'm good from like 8 a.m. until about 1. Like that's when my brain's popping. But like if I'm like chained to a desk, then those 4 hours per day where I'm not like doing the bright work, like it just rolls over to the next day, and it just wasn't a good fit. So I went out on my own. Before I went out on my own, I had like a hit list of who I was going to reach out to. And so one of the first like 3 people I reached out to, she hired me as a marketing consultant, and it was somebody that I had a relationship with. And so I had a really good transition from working full time. I stopped that in June, and then doing the consulting for her until about February of this year. And that was amazing because I was able to work with small businesses, handle all of their like, their marketing strategies and their campaigns, and like it was very fulfilling work. And it was such a great, because I was 100% burned out from those 2 positions, and now it's like over the past few months I've been able to get some of my own like clients, like just one-on-one clients, and it's like I'm figuring out what it is I want to do when I grow up and like what my skill sets are, and also like just doing the mindset stuff of like I'm gonna like let it be easy, you know. I'm gonna let things come to me. If it feels like there's friction or I'm forcing something, or if something seems like it's not a good fit, I'm not gonna keep trying to push the puzzle piece in.
I love that so much. Let it be easy, guys. Yes. That is
Yeah.
like a tagline. Throw that on a t-shirt. That is,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Thanks. Yeah. Like, but it's like, you know, I feel like you kind of know, but that's part of like just getting back in touch with your intuition, is realizing like, yeah, some things are difficult and some things are hard, but intuitively we know when we're trying to force something to fit. And
Mhm.
when we do that, then it just kind of desensitizes us to our intuition and to, you know, letting things be easy, because we're like, whoa, you know, like I'm always so suspicious. Like when somebody pays their invoice right away, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, what's the catch?
Yeah. I'm like, do they have access to my account now? Like, what's happening? You know, like, but it's like, that's because of so many times of just like gaslighting myself, you know? But yeah, so that's where we have been. I think you guys have an idea of where we're going, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're planning to be consistently dropping, I think, weekly episodes on Tuesdays. Just the same kind of format, right? Real conversations, Marsha and I, just talking through different topics that relate to business, building your business, your mindset around that. Marsha is branding, mindset mentor, marketing, like all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about those topics, and then I'm all about the systems and the automation and productizing your services and all of that. So we'll be blending those hopefully seamlessly, maybe clunkily, we'll see. But the real goal at the end of the day is that when you're listening to the podcast, you feel like you're just kind of sitting down with two besties who are shooting the, can I cuss? Anyway, the SHIT. And, and it's just a real conversation, talking about what is actually going on in the in between, in the messy middles, in the stuff that it's not going to be polished and pretty. If you want that kind of podcast, there's lots of those out there. You can go on and find those. But if you want the real, like, just this is like what it's like to be in the trenches, going to war, that's what you're going to get here.
I'm so excited to be doing this with you again, Karen. Thank you for sending that text, and thank you, Marsha's brain, for having, you know, like that want before you reached out. So I'm excited about this, and I'm happy for the timing, and I think we'll be able to help a lot of people. So yay.
Yay.
Till the next episode.